I'm 12 years old and I'm going to land this plane. The captain just died. The co-pilot is crying, hands shaking so badly he can't control the aircraft. 189 passengers are screaming. Nobody knows I've been secretly flying for 3 years. Nobody knows my mother was a fighter pilot. Nobody knows I can save them. Until now. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Emma Mitchell was 12 years old, and she had learned to be invisible. She sat in seat 19C of United Flight 804, her small body practically drowning in an oversized navy blue hoodie that had once belonged to her mother. The sleeves hung past her fingertips. Her worn-out sneakers, 2 sizes too big because her grandfather said she'd grow into them, dangled above the floor, not quite reaching it even when she stretched her toes. Long brown hair, the same shade as her mother's, fell in a messy ponytail across one shoulder. Dark circles under her eyes made her look older than 12, or maybe just tired. So very tired. Around her neck, hidden beneath the hoodie, hung 2 silver dog tags on a thin chain. Her fingers kept creeping up to touch them through the fabric. A nervous habit she couldn't break, wouldn't break, didn't want to break. The metal was warm from her skin. She could feel the raised letters without looking. Could recite them from memory because she'd read them 1,000 times. Mitchell, Rebecca J., CPT, USN call sign, Valkyrie. The flight attendant, a kind woman named Janet with silver hair and smile lines around her eyes, had checked on Emma 3 times already since they'd taken off from Chicago. You doing okay, sweetheart? Need anything? Water? Snack? Want me to check if they have any magazines for kids? Emma shook her head each time, offering a small, polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'm fine, thank you. She hated being treated like a helpless child just because she was flying alone. The paperwork clipped to her ticket said, "Unaccompanied minor," in bold red letters, which made her sound lost and pathetic and alone. Which, if she was being completely honest with herself, she kind of was. 3 years ago, everything changed. 3 years ago, her mother died. Captain Rebecca Valkyrie Mitchell. United States Navy fighter pilot. F/A-18 Super Hornet. Shot down during a combat mission over hostile territory. The details were classified, but the result was final: her mother wasn't coming home. They never recovered her body. Just sent back her helmet with a crack across the visor, her torn flight suit with bloodstains the military tried to clean, and a folded American flag that now sat in a glass case in her grandfather's living room. Emma's father had left when she was 6 years old. He'd walked out one Tuesday morning after another fight about her mother's deployments, her mother's dangerous job, her mother's refusal to quit flying and be a normal wife and mother. "I can't do this anymore, Rebecca," he'd said, bags already packed. "I can't sit at home wondering if today's the day you don't come back. I can't raise a daughter alone while you're halfway around the world playing hero." Her mother had stood there in her flight suit, jaw tight, eyes dry. "Then go. Emma and I will be fine without you." He'd left without hugging Emma goodbye. Her mother had been right, they were fine without him. Better than fine. Those were some of Emma's happiest memories, just her and Mom, making pancakes for dinner, watching old movies, learning about airplanes and weather patterns and why the sky was blue. But then her mother deployed one last time. And didn't come back. So at 9 years old, Emma had been packed up and sent to Seattle to live with her grandfather, retired Air Force Colonel James Mitchell, 71 years old, living alone in a small house near a private airstrip. 2 broken people, shattered by the same loss, trying to figure out how to keep living. Most kids would have fallen apart. Would have needed therapy, medication, special schools for traumatized children. Emma did something completely different. 2 weeks after the funeral, after the military honors and the 21-gun salute and the bagpipes playing, Amazing Grace, Emma found her grandfather sitting alone in his garage, crying. Actually crying. This tough old military man with medals from 3 wars and scars from a dozen crashes, weeping like a child. He was surrounded by old flight manuals, yellowed with age. Black and white photos of jets from the 1970s. Her mother's training logbooks from when she was a teenager, learning to fly in this very garage with this very man. Emma stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching him. Then she walked over, sat down on the cold concrete floor beside him, and said 5 words that changed everything. "Grandpa. Teach me to fly." He looked at her like she'd spoken in a foreign language. His eyes were red and swollen. "Emma, sweetheart, you're 9 years old. Mom started learning when she was 10. You taught her. Right here in this garage. With these same manuals. Your mother was special. Fearless. Born to fly. You don't have to follow in her footsteps. I'm not doing this because I have to." Emma's voice was small but steady as steel. "I'm doing this because she wanted me to." Her grandfather frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Emma reached under her shirt and pulled out her mother's dog tags. "The night before her last deployment, Mom came into my room. Really late. I was supposed to be asleep but I wasn't. She sat on my bed and she told me something." "What did she tell you?" "She said, Emma, if something happens to me, and I need you to listen carefully, if something happens and I don't come home, I don't want you to be sad forever. Be sad for a little while, because that's okay, but then I want you to be strong. Be brave. Learn to fly so you can see the world the way I saw it. From above. Where everything makes sense. Where you're free." Tears were streaming down Emma's face now, but her voice didn't shake. "She made me promise, Grandpa. Made me promise I'd learn to fly. So I'm asking you, teach me. Please." Colonel James Mitchell stared at his granddaughter, this small, grieving child who looked so heartbreakingly similar to his daughter it physically hurt to look at her sometimes, and made a decision that violated every rule, every regulation, every shred of common sense and legal guidance. He took a deep breath and nodded. "Okay. But if we do this, we do it right. No shortcuts. No quitting when it gets hard. If I'm going to teach you to fly, you're going to learn everything. Theory. Mechanics. Weather. Navigation. Emergency procedures. Radio communication. Flight planning. All of it. Understand?" Emma's eyes went wide. Then she nodded so hard her ponytail bounced. "I understand. This stays secret. You tell nobody. Not your friends at school, not your teachers, nobody. Because if anyone finds out a 12-year-old is flying planes, they'll take you away from me and I'll go to jail. Understand?" "I understand." "And Emma?" Her grandfather's voice softened. "Your mother would be so damn proud of you." For the next 3 years, Emma Mitchell lived 2 completely separate lives. At school, she was the quiet girl who sat alone at lunch, reading books about clouds and aircraft instead of talking to other kids. The girl who seemed too serious, too sad, too old for her age. Teachers worried about her in hushed conversations in the staff room, wondering if she needed counseling, if she was coping okay with her mother's death. But at home, behind closed doors, Emma became something else entirely. Every single evening after school, flight manuals spread across the kitchen table, studying aircraft systems until her eyes hurt. Learning about lift and drag and thrust and weight. Memorizing emergency checklists. Understanding weather patterns and how to read aviation charts. Every weekend, the small private airstrip where her grandfather kept an old Cessna 172, white with blue stripes, registration number N2847Q. He couldn't legally let her fly solo, she was way too young, not licensed, not even close to the minimum age. But he could teach her. The first time Emma climbed into the pilot's seat, her feet didn't reach the rudder pedals. Her grandfather stacked 3 cushions under her so she could see over the instrument panel. Her small hands could barely grip the yoke properly. "This is the throttle," he explained patiently. "This controls your engine power. Push it in, you go faster. Pull it out, you slow down. Simple. Simple," Emma repeated, her voice filled with wonder. "These are the rudder pedals. They control the nose of the aircraft left and right. You'll use them for steering on the ground and for coordinating turns in the air." "Coordinating turns," Emma echoed, committing it to memory. "This is the yoke, your control wheel. Pull back, the nose goes up. Push forward, the nose goes down. Left and right turns by turning the wheel." Emma's hands trembled as she touched the yoke. "Mom held this same yoke, didn't she? When you taught her?" "She did. And you know what she said the first time?" "What?" "She said, 'This is where I belong.'" "And Emma?" Her grandfather's voice got thick with emotion. "I can already tell you belong here too." The training was relentless and thorough. They started with engine starts and shutdowns. Then taxiing on the ground, learning to steer with the rudder pedals, feeling how the plane responded. By age 10, Emma could execute a takeoff that was smoother than pilots with 100 hours of experience. She understood the feeling, that magical moment when the wheels left the ground and the airplane transitioned from a clumsy machine rolling on pavement to a graceful bird soaring through air. By age 11, she'd practiced emergency procedures so many times they were burned into her muscle memory. Engine failures. Electrical system malfunctions. Loss of radio communication. Unexpected weather. Her grandfather would suddenly pull the throttle to idle during a flight and bark, "Engine failure." "What do you do?" Emma wouldn't panic. "Establish best glide speed. Pick a landing spot. Run the restart checklist. If no restart, prepare for emergency landing." "Good. Now do it." And she would, hands steady, mind clear, talking herself through each step just like he'd taught her. By age 12, Emma had secretly logged over 200 hours of flight time. 200 hours of taking off, flying, and landing. 200 hours of learning to read the sky, to feel the wind, to understand the airplane as an extension of her own body. Her call sign, Legacy, came after a particularly difficult landing. Strong crosswinds. Gusting to 30 knots. Her grandfather had suggested they postpone, but Emma insisted on trying. "Mom flew in combat," Emma had said firmly. "She dealt with surface-to-air missiles and enemy fighters. I can handle some wind." The landing was rough. The plane bounced twice before settling on the runway. But Emma maintained control, didn't panic, brought it to a safe stop. Her grandfather climbed out of the instructor's seat and just looked at her for a long moment. "What?" Emma asked nervously. "Was it that bad?" "No," he said slowly. "It was good. Really good. You know what your mother's call sign was?" "Valkyrie." "Do you know what a Valkyrie is?" "In Norse mythology." Emma shook her head. Valkyries were warrior maidens who chose which soldiers would die in battle and which would live. They carried the souls of the worthy to Valhalla. Your mother got that call sign because she saved so many people, her wingmen, soldiers on the ground, civilians caught in crossfire. She decided who lived. He put his hand on Emma's shoulder. "You're her daughter. You carry her bloodline, her skills, her courage. You're her legacy. That's your call sign now, Legacy." Emma touched her mother's dog tags, hanging around her neck. "Will I ever be as good as she was?" Her grandfather smiled sadly. "Emma, you're 12 years old and you just landed a plane in 30-knot crosswinds without my help. You're already better than most pilots twice your age. You already are as good as she was. You just don't know it yet." But Emma never told anyone outside her grandfather about any of this. Not her classmates at school, who wouldn't have believed her anyway. Not her teachers, who already thought she was strange and troubled. Not her aunt in Chicago, who she visited occasionally and who thought Emma was just a quiet, bookish kid. Nobody. Because if anyone found out that a 12-year-old girl was illegally flying aircraft, her grandfather would lose his pilot's license. He might face criminal charges, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, reckless endangerment, dozens of federal aviation violations. And Emma would be taken away, put into foster care, separated from the only family she had left. So she stayed invisible. Kept her head down. Lived her double life in complete secret. Flew with her grandfather on weekends, then pretended to be just a normal kid the rest of the time. This trip to Seattle was supposed to be simple and routine. Emma had spent a week visiting her aunt in Chicago. Her grandfather couldn't travel with her, he'd been sick recently, though he refused to talk about it, insisting it was just a cold or nothing serious. She'd flown this route alone 4 times before. The routine was familiar and boring: check in as an unaccompanied minor, board early, read a book during the flight, land in Seattle, get picked up by Grandpa. Easy. Safe. Unremarkable. Except today, 90 minutes into the flight, everything went catastrophically wrong in ways Emma never could have imagined. Captain Richard Hayes was 54 years old and having what he thought was going to be one of his easiest days ever. He'd been flying commercial jets for 28 years. Started with small regional carriers right out of the Air Force, worked his way up to major airlines, accumulated over 15,000 flight hours. This Chicago to Seattle route was so familiar he could practically fly it in his sleep. He'd flown it at least 300 times. Knew every waypoint, every altitude change, every radio frequency like the back of his hand. The weather was perfect. Clear blue skies. Visibility unlimited. Light traffic. Barely any turbulence. Passengers were settled in, most already dozing or watching movies. The flight attendants were preparing the beverage service. Everything was peaceful and routine. His first officer, Marcus Webb, sat in the right seat. Marcus was 26 years old. Young and still relatively inexperienced, only 800 hours total in the 737. He'd been with the airline for just over a year. Still nervous about making mistakes. Still double and triple checking everything he did. But he was eager to learn, respectful, and followed procedures carefully. Captain Hayes liked flying with him. Smooth ride today, Marcus commented, scanning the instruments. Doesn't get much better than this, Hayes agreed. Enjoy it while it lasts. Winter's coming and these routes can get nasty. They chatted casually about football, about Marcus's upcoming wedding, about Hayes's grandkids. 30,000 feet above the earth, cruising at 480 knots, everything was perfectly, completely, beautifully normal. Then, without any warning at all, Captain Richard Hayes made a small sound. A grunt. Barely audible over the cockpit noise. Marcus glanced over casually. Captain. You okay? Hayes's face had gone deathly pale. Sweat was beading on his forehead despite the cool cockpit air. His left hand clutched at his chest, fingers digging into his uniform shirt. I don't feel. His voice came out tight, strangled, wrong. Marcus's casual concern instantly transformed into alarm. Captain Hayes. What's wrong? Hayes tried to answer but couldn't get words out. His breathing was rapid and shallow. His eyes were wide with pain and fear. Then he slumped forward against his harness. Completely unconscious. His weight pushed the control yoke forward. The plane's nose dipped down. Altitude alarms immediately started screaming. Marcus's training kicked in automatically. He grabbed his own yoke and pulled back, leveling the aircraft. Captain. Captain. He reached over and shook Hayes's shoulder roughly. No response. Hayes was completely limp, head lolling. Marcus's heart was hammering so hard he thought it might explode out of his chest. His hands started shaking. Oh God! Oh God! Oh God! Oh God! He slammed the intercom button with a trembling finger. His voice came out high and cracked with terror. Flight attendant to the cockpit immediately. Medical emergency. Now. Janet, the senior flight attendant, was at the cockpit door in seconds. The panic in Marcus's voice had sent her running. She burst through the door and immediately saw Captain Hayes slumped unconscious. Her face went white. Oh my God! Check if he's breathing. Marcus shouted, desperately trying to maintain control of the aircraft while monitoring instruments with shaking hands. Janet quickly checked for a pulse at Hayes's neck. Put her ear near his mouth and nose. Her expression went from worried to terrified. He's not breathing. No pulse. I think it's his heart, we need to start CPR right now. Another flight attendant rushed in to help. Together, they struggled to release Hayes from his harness and pull him out of his seat. The cockpit was cramped and awkward. It took precious seconds to maneuver his limp body onto the floor. Janet immediately began chest compressions, counting under her breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. Marcus was completely alone at the controls now. His hands were shaking so violently he could barely hold the yoke steady. His breathing was coming in short, panicked gasps. Sweat was pouring down his face. He'd never flown completely solo in an emergency. Never been solely responsible for 189 human lives. His entire training had been in simulators, clean, controlled, with instructors who could pause the scenario if something went wrong. This was real. This was happening right now. His captain, his mentor, the experienced pilot who was supposed to be in charge, was dying on the floor behind him. And Marcus had no idea if he could do this alone. His hand fumbled for the radio. Denver Center, United 804, we have an emergency, captain is incapacitated, medical emergency, requesting. His voice was shaking so badly the words came out garbled. United 804, Denver Center, say again. You're breaking up. Marcus tried to steady his voice and failed completely. Denver Center, United 804, the captain is unconscious, I think heart attack, they're doing CPR, I'm the only pilot now. 804, can you continue to safely operate the aircraft? Marcus stared at the instrument panel. His vision was blurring with fear sweat. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. He was supposed to say yes. Supposed to sound calm and professional and in control. But he wasn't in control. He was terrified. I can fly but I've never. I don't know if I can land this alone. I'm not ready for this, I've never done this without supervision. What Marcus didn't realize in his panic was that he'd forgotten to turn off the cabin intercom when he'd called for the flight attendant. Every word he was saying was being broadcast throughout the entire passenger cabin. In the cabin, people heard everything. They saw flight attendants running toward the cockpit with medical equipment. They heard the young first officer's voice, cracking with fear, admitting over the radio that he didn't know if he could land the plane alone. The reaction was immediate and catastrophic. People started crying. Some screamed. A woman in first class began praying loudly. A man started hyperventilating into a paper bag. Parents clutched their children. Strangers grabbed hands with seat neighbors. Panic rippled through the cabin like wildfire spreading through dry grass. In seat 19C, Emma Mitchell heard every single word. She heard the terror in the first officer's voice. The desperate admission that he wasn't ready, didn't know if he could do this. She felt the slight wobble in the aircraft's flight path, subtle, but definitely there. Marcus was overcorrecting, his hands too tense, his inputs too jerky and hesitant. Emma knew that wobble intimately. She'd felt it herself when she was first learning, when she was scared and uncertain. That was the wobble of someone flying scared instead of flying confident. That was the wobble of a pilot about to lose control. Her heart was pounding. Her small hands gripped her mother's dog tags so tightly the metal edges cut into her palms. This isn't your problem. You're just a kid. You're 12 years old. You can't help. Stay in your seat. Let the adults handle it. But Emma knew aircraft emergencies better than most adults. She'd trained for them relentlessly. She'd flown practice approaches in terrible weather, with her grandfather randomly simulating equipment failures and engine problems. She'd handled situations where an experienced adult pilot would have panicked. She wasn't licensed. Wasn't legal. Wasn't even supposed to know how to fly. But she absolutely, definitely recognized the voice of a pilot who was about to lose control of his aircraft. And she could not, would not, just sit here and do nothing while 189 people died because she was too scared to try. Emma unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up. The businessman in seat 19D immediately grabbed her arm. His face was pale with fear. "Kid, sit down. It's not safe to be walking around." Emma pulled her arm free with surprising strength. Her voice was quiet but absolutely certain. "I know it's not safe. That's exactly why I need to help." She started walking up the aisle toward the cockpit. All around her, adults were completely panicking. Crying. Praying out loud. Holding each other. Some were recording goodbye messages on their phones to their families. This tiny 12-year-old girl walked through the chaos with perfect calm, heading directly toward the cockpit like she had every right to be there. A young flight attendant, not Janet, someone else, stepped into the aisle to block her path. "Sweetheart, you need to sit down right now." "It's not. I need to talk to the first officer," Emma said calmly. "Right now. It's urgent. You can't just go into the cockpit. My name is Emma Mitchell. My call sign is Legacy. My mother was Captain Rebecca Mitchell, call sign Valkyrie, United States Navy fighter pilot. My grandfather is retired Air Force Colonel James Mitchell. I've been flying aircraft for 3 years. That first officer is about to lose control of this plane and I can help him." The flight attendant stared at Emma like she'd started speaking in tongues. Emma didn't wait for permission or approval. She simply stepped around the stunned woman and knocked firmly on the cockpit door. Marcus Webb looked through the small reinforced window in the cockpit door. He saw a child. A little girl wearing an oversized hoodie. She looked about 12 years old. Confusion cut through his overwhelming panic. "What the hell?" He cracked the door open slightly. "What, you can't be up here, you need to sit down." "Are you okay?" Emma asked. Simple. Direct. Her brown eyes were steady and calm. The question was so unexpected that Marcus actually answered honestly. "No." His voice cracked. "I'm not okay. The captain is dying on the floor and I don't know if I can land this plane alone and everyone's going to die, Anne." His voice broke completely. Emma stepped inside the cockpit and closed the door firmly behind her. She looked down at Captain Hayes on the floor. Janet was still doing compressions, sweat dripping down her face. Hayes's face had turned a horrible blue-gray color. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. Emma's expression didn't change. She didn't scream or faint or cry. She stayed perfectly calm and focused. "First Officer Webb," she said quietly, "my name is Emma Mitchell. I'm 12 years old. For the last 3 years, I've been flying aircraft under the instruction of my grandfather, retired Air Force Colonel James Mitchell. I've logged over 200 hours of flight time. I know aircraft systems, flight controls, navigation procedures, and emergency protocols. I'm not licensed and I'm not legal. But I absolutely know how to fly. And I can help you land this plane safely." Marcus stared at her like she just claimed to be an alien from Mars. You're 12. You're a child. How could you possibly?" I've logged 217 hours in a Cessna 172, Emma said calmly. I know how to read instruments. I know radio procedures. I know how to navigate using VOR and GPS. I've practiced engine-out landings, crosswind landings, short-field approaches, and emergency descents. I know exactly what I'm doing. You're 12 years old. And you're panicking, Emma said, not unkindly. She pointed at his hands on the yoke. Look. Your hands are shaking badly. You're overcorrecting your inputs. You're flying scared instead of confident. If you keep going like this, you're going to lose control. So please, let me sit in the observer seat and help you. You stay as pilot in command. I'll be your co-pilot. Together, we can do this. But you can't do it alone. Not like this. Every rational part of Marcus's brain was screaming that this was completely insane. But his terrified, desperate brain saw someone who seemed calm. Someone who seemed confident. Someone who was offering help when he had absolutely none. Janet looked up from CPR. Her arms were exhausted. Marcus, I'm sorry, he's gone. There's no pulse. We've lost him. She sat back, breathing hard, tears in her eyes. Marcus felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. No, 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 no. Marcus. Emma's voice cut through his spiraling panic. Look at me. He looked at her. This small child with brown eyes that seemed way too old and steady for her age. The captain is dead, Emma said gently. That's terrible and sad and we'll grieve for him later. But right now, you have 189 people depending on you to land this aircraft. You can either fall apart and kill everyone, or you can accept my help and save everyone. Your choice. Decide right now. Marcus made an impossible choice. Sit down. Observer seat behind me. Don't touch any controls unless I specifically tell you to. Emma quickly climbed into the jump seat, buckling the harness. She was so small her feet dangled well above the floor. But her small hands moved with practiced, confident precision as she scanned the instrument panel. First thing, Emma said calmly, slow your breathing down. You're hyperventilating. That's making everything worse. Breathe in slowly through your nose. Hold for 3 seconds. Out slowly through your mouth. Do it with me. Marcus tried. In. Hold. Out. His breathing started to steady slightly. Good. Now look at your instruments. What do you see? Altitude 30,000 feet, airspeed 480 knots, heading 270. Exactly. And what does that tell you? That I'm flying straight and level. Yes. The aircraft is stable. You're on course. Everything is normal except your confidence. So let's build that back up, step by step. Emma reached forward with her small hand and keyed the radio microphone. When she spoke, her voice was clear, professional, and utterly calm. Denver Center, United 804. This is call sign Legacy speaking. I am providing co-pilot assistance to First Officer Webb during this emergency. Requesting immediate priority landing at nearest suitable airport with full emergency services standing by for medical emergency involving the captain. There was a long silence on the radio. Then, United 804. Who is this? Please identify yourself properly. Denver Center, this is Emma Mitchell, call sign Legacy. I am the daughter of Captain Rebecca Mitchell, call sign Valkyrie, United States Navy, deceased. I am a trained pilot providing co-pilot support to First Officer Webb during this emergency situation. Another silence. Even longer this time. Then a completely different voice came through the radio. Older. Gruff. Unmistakably military. Legacy, this is Denver Center Supervisor. Did you just say Rebecca Mitchell? Valkyrie? Affirmative, sir. She was my mother. A pause. When the voice came back, it was thick with emotion. Legacy, this is Colonel Davis, United States Air Force, retired. I'm working ATC now. I flew with your mother during joint operations 15 years ago in the Middle East. She saved my entire squadron from an ambush. Shot down 3 enemy aircraft to protect us. She was the finest pilot I ever knew. Emma's voice stayed steady, but her free hand gripped her mother's dog tags tightly. Thank you, sir. She spoke highly of her Air Force colleagues. If you're even half the pilot your mother was, that first officer is in the best possible hands. What do you need from us, Legacy? Sir, I need vectors to the closest suitable airport with emergency services. Current weather conditions. Runway length and orientation. Approach instructions. First Officer Webb will maintain control of all aircraft systems. I'm providing guidance and support only. Copy that, Legacy. Stand by. There was a brief pause. Emma could hear Colonel Davis barking orders in the background to other controllers. Legacy, nearest suitable airport is Colorado Springs, bearing 135 degrees, 40 miles southeast of your current position. Runway 17R, 13,500 feet long, ILS approach available. Current weather, clear skies, visibility 10 miles, winds light and variable at 5 knots. We are clearing all traffic in your area. You have absolute priority. Emergency services are being notified now. Thank you, Colonel Davis. First Officer Webb will begin descent shortly. Legacy. Colonel Davis's voice softened. Your mother would be so damn proud of you right now. Emma's eyes filled with tears, but her voice didn't waver. I hope so, sir. Marcus was staring at Emma with an expression of complete disbelief. How do you know how to talk like that? My grandfather made me memorize every radio call, Emma said. Every procedure. Every emergency protocol. Every bit of aviation terminology. He said if I was going to fly, I'd do it absolutely right or not at all. No shortcuts. No exceptions. She turned to look at Marcus directly. Now. Let's get this plane on the ground safely. Ready? Marcus swallowed hard and nodded. Okay. First step, reduce your throttle to 70%. Nice and slow. Don't jerk it. Marcus's shaking hand moved the throttle back. The engine noise reduced. Good. Now I want you to start descending. Target rate is 1500 feet per minute. Watch your vertical speed indicator. 1500 feet per minute, Marcus repeated, pushing the yoke forward slightly. The altimeter started unwinding. Perfect. Now configure your flaps to 5 degrees. Marcus reached for the flap lever. Wait, Emma said. What's your airspeed? Marcus glanced at the indicator. 470 knots. And what's the maximum flap speed? Marcus's mind went blank with panic. I don't remember. 250 knots, Emma said calmly. So what do you need to do first? Slow down. Exactly. Reduce throttle more. Get your speed below 250 before extending flaps. Right. Sorry. I knew that, You're doing fine, Marcus. Your brain is just working too fast because you're scared. So slow down. Think before you act. We have time. For the next 30 minutes, Emma talked Marcus through every single step of the descent. She never touched the controls. Never took over. That would have been dangerous. She was too small to properly reach everything, and legally Marcus had to remain pilot in command. But she was the calm, confident voice he desperately needed. Marcus, call out your altitude every 1,000 feet. It'll keep you focused. 29,000. Good. How's your rate of descent? 1,500 feet per minute. Perfect. Maintain that. You're doing great. 28,000. Check your airspeed. 300 knots. You're descending faster now, so your airspeed is increasing. That's normal. But watch it carefully. 27,000. Emma monitored every instrument from her jump seat. Cross-checked navigation against the GPS, confirmed approach clearances with ATC. She was doing everything a real co-pilot would do. Except she was 12 years old, with feet that dangled above the floor. Behind them, Janet had covered Captain Hayes's body with a blanket. She sat on the floor, exhausted and grieving, but staying out of the way. As they descended through 10,000 feet, a new voice crackled over the radio. Sharp. Professional. Unmistakably military. United 804, this is Viper Lead. F-16 Fighting Falcon out of Peterson Air Force Base. We are your escort. We will be visual with your aircraft in approximately 90 seconds. Emma keyed the mic immediately. Viper Lead, this is Legacy. Thank you for the escort. Please confirm you have our current position and altitude. Legacy, we have you on radar. Descending through 9,000 feet, 40 miles north of Colorado Springs. We'll take up positions on your left and right wing. A pause. Then. Legacy, wait. Are you the Legacy? Valkyrie's daughter? Emma's voice stayed professional, but Marcus could hear the emotion underneath. Affirmative, Viper Lead. That's correct. Another pause. When the F-16 pilot spoke again, his voice had changed completely. Respectful. Almost reverent. Ma'am, I mean, Legacy, your mother personally trained half the fighter pilots in my squadron. She was an absolute legend in Navy and Air Force aviation circles. It is a genuine honor to provide escort for you. Tears were running down Emma's cheeks now, but her voice remained steady. Viper Lead, my mother would tell you to stop talking and focus on your job. Now please take up your escort positions and ensure we have clear airspace for approach. A moment of surprised silence. Then a low chuckle. Yes, ma'am. You sound exactly like her. Viper Flight, take up escort positions. 30 seconds later, two sleek F-16 fighters appeared outside the cockpit windows. Powerful, deadly machines flanking the big commercial airliner like protective guardian angels. Marcus saw them and felt some of his overwhelming fear finally start to ease. They're here for you. They're here for all of us, Emma corrected gently. Those pilots have families waiting for them too. They understand what's at stake. Now focus. We're 15 miles from the airport. Time to configure for landing approach. Emma walked Marcus through each step with patient, perfect precision. Extend landing gear. Marcus flipped the switch. 3 green lights illuminated. Gear down and locked. Good. Now flaps to 15 degrees. The aircraft shuddered slightly as the flaps extended. Flaps 15. Check your airspeed. 200 knots. Perfect. You're right on target. Now flaps to 30 degrees. Full landing configuration. Flaps 30. Final approach speed for this aircraft weight should be approximately 140 knots. You're currently at 180. Gradually reduce throttle. Reducing throttle. You've captured the localizer. The instrument landing system is now guiding you. You're perfectly on the glide slope. Everything is going exactly as it should. At 500 feet above the ground, Marcus's hand started shaking violently again. Emma, what if I mess this up? What if I land too hard and the gear collapses? What if I bounce and lose control? What if? Marcus. Emma's voice cut through his spiral of panic. Look at me. He glanced back. This tiny child was looking at him with absolute confidence. You are not going to mess this up. You know why? Why? Because you're not alone. I'm right here with you. My mom's spirit is watching over both of us. Captain Hayes believed in you, that's why you're sitting in that seat. Your training was excellent. You know how to do this. You just need to trust yourself. But. No buts. We're going to land this plane safely. Together. Now turn around and focus on the runway. I'll call out altitudes. You fly. At 100 feet, Emma started calling out. 50 feet above runway, 40, 30, start your flare now, gentle back pressure on the yoke, 20 feet, 10 feet, hold it steady, hold it. The main wheels kissed the runway. Firm, but safe. The plane bounced slightly, once, then settled. Marcus deployed the thrust reversers. The engines roared. He applied the brakes firmly but smoothly. The massive aircraft slowed from 140 knots, to 100. To 60. To 40. To 20. Marcus guided it onto a taxiway and brought it to a complete stop. Then he started crying. Full, body-shaking sobs. We did it, oh my God, we did it, we're alive, everyone's alive. Emma unbuckled her harness with shaking hands. The adrenaline was wearing off now and she suddenly felt exhausted. You did it, Marcus, she said softly. You flew the entire approach. You made the landing. I just helped you remember that you could. When the emergency doors opened and the slides deployed, passengers flooded out onto the tarmac. Crying. Hugging complete strangers. Kissing the ground. Thanking God and Marcus and the flight attendants. Emergency vehicles surrounded the aircraft, fire trucks, ambulances, police cars, all with lights flashing. Paramedics rushed onto the plane and confirmed what everyone already knew, Captain Hayes was dead. But 189 other people were completely safe. The passengers quickly learned what had happened. Word spread fast about the 12-year-old girl who had helped the terrified first officer land the plane. She's just a kid. She saved all of us. Her mother was some kind of war hero. News crews were already setting up. Someone had called the media. The story was about to explode. But Emma didn't want interviews or attention. She didn't want to be on television or in newspapers. She just wanted her grandfather. Colonel James Mitchell arrived at Colorado Springs Airport 2 hours later. He came in a wheelchair, pushed by a nurse. He was much sicker than he'd admitted to Emma. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors had given him 6 months maximum. He'd been hiding it from her, not wanting her to worry. When he saw Emma sitting in an airport office, wrapped in a blanket, drinking hot chocolate, his weathered face crumpled and tears streamed down his cheeks. Grandpa. Emma ran to him, nearly knocking the wheelchair over as she threw herself into his lap. You did it, Legacy, he whispered, holding her tight. You saved them. All of them. I broke every rule, Emma sobbed. They're going to arrest you for teaching me. They're going to take me away. I'm so sorry. Stop. His voice was fierce despite his frail body. Don't you dare apologize. What you did today, Emma, your mother would be so incredibly proud. I am so proud. You saved 189 lives. You're a hero. He held her while she finally let herself cry. Let herself be just a scared 12-year-old girl instead of a pilot. The FAA launched a full investigation within 24 hours. Technically, Emma had violated dozens of federal aviation regulations. Operating an aircraft without a license or medical certificate. Acting as a required flight crew member without proper certification. Her age alone made everything completely illegal. Technically, Colonel Mitchell should face serious criminal charges. Contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Reckless endangerment. Allowing an unlicensed person to operate aircraft. Multiple counts of violating FAA regulations. The preliminary hearing was intense and formal. But then something unexpected happened. Colonel Davis, the ATC supervisor who had worked with Emma's mother, submitted a 20-page written testimony and insisted on appearing in person. That child saved 189 human lives using skills taught by a man who loves her, he said firmly, standing before the FAA review board. She didn't fly that plane, First Officer Webb did. But she gave him the confidence, guidance, and support he needed to succeed when he was failing from panic. If you punish her and Colonel Mitchell for that, you are punishing the very definition of heroism. The F-16 pilots from Peterson Air Force Base submitted official statements praising Emma's composure, professionalism, and skill under extreme pressure. Dozens of passengers sent letters to the FAA begging them not to prosecute. Marcus Webb wrote an official report that was read aloud during the hearing. Without Emma Mitchell's assistance, I would have lost control of that aircraft. She didn't fly the plane, I did. But she gave me the knowledge, confidence, and guidance to do it correctly when I was paralyzed with fear. She is a pilot in every way that matters except age and paperwork. She saved my life and the lives of everyone on board. I owe her everything. 6 months later, after extensive deliberation, the FAA made an unprecedented decision. No charges would be filed against Colonel Mitchell. No penalties would be assessed against Emma. Instead, she would receive a special commendation, not a pilot's license, since she was still far too young for that, but an official recognition. For extraordinary skill, knowledge, and courage displayed under emergency conditions. Emma Mitchell's actions on United Flight 804 exemplify the highest ideals of aviation. Her grandfather lived long enough to see her honored at a special ceremony. 3 weeks after that ceremony, Colonel James Mitchell died peacefully in his sleep. His final words, whispered to Emma as she held his hand in the hospital, "Tell Legacy she's ready now. Tell her it's time to fly high and make her mother proud." At his funeral, Emma stood in her best dress, holding the folded flag from his military service, and made a promise to his memory and to her mother's memory. She would become a Navy pilot. Just like her mother. She would earn her wings the right way. The legal way. And she would make them both proud. Emma Mitchell stood outside the Navy recruiter's office in Seattle. She was 17 now. 5'6". Stronger, older, with her mother's same determined jawline. Her long brown hair was pulled back in a regulation-perfect ponytail. She still wore her mother's dog tags. Every single day. Never took them off. She'd spent the 5 years since the emergency landing preparing for this moment. Straight A student. Perfect SAT scores. Star athlete on the track team. Volunteer work. Everything she needed for a strong military application. And she'd continued flying legally now, earning her private pilot's license the day she turned 17, her instructor marveling at how she flew like someone with 1,000 hours instead of barely meeting minimums. The recruiter, a stern-looking Navy chief with gray hair and sharp eyes, reviewed her application carefully. "Says here you want to be a Navy pilot. Like your mother." "Yes, sir. You understand it's one of the most difficult, demanding programs in the entire military. The washout rate is over 60%. Most candidates don't make it." "I understand, sir. But I've been training for this my entire life." The recruiter pulled up her file on his computer. His eyes went wide. "Wait. Hold on. You're that Emma Mitchell. Legacy. The 12-year-old who helped land United 804 after the captain died?" Emma nodded quietly. The recruiter sat back in his chair, studying her with new respect and something like awe. "Ma'am, with all due respect, you don't need to convince me of anything. You're already a legend in military aviation circles. Your mother was Valkyrie, one of the finest fighter pilots in naval history. Your legacy, the kid who saved 189 people when most adults would have panicked and failed. The Navy would be genuinely honored to have you. Emma signed the papers that day. The years that followed were brutal and unforgiving. Basic training designed to break people. Officer candidate school that pushed her to her absolute limits. Flight school that was specifically engineered to wash out anyone who wasn't absolutely exceptional. But Emma never quit. When instructors yelled in her face, she stayed calm. When physical training pushed her to exhaustion, she remembered being 12 years old, talking a terrified pilot through an emergency landing. When other candidates washed out, crying, defeated, giving up, Emma kept going. She remembered her mother. Her grandfather. The promise she'd made. At age 23, Emma Mitchell earned her wings of gold. Navy fighter pilot. F/A-18 Super Hornet. Assigned to VFA 41, the Black Aces, the same squadron her mother had once commanded. On her first day reporting to the squadron, the commanding officer, a woman in her 50s with iron gray hair and 3 rows of combat ribbons, looked at Emma's name tag. She paused. Looked closer. Mitchell. Legacy. You're Valkyrie's daughter. Yes, ma'am. The commander's stern expression softened just slightly. Your mother saved my life in combat. Yemen, 2019. 2 enemy fighters had me locked. I was dead. She came out of nowhere, shot down both bogies, took a missile hit herself but still managed to fly her damaged aircraft back to the carrier. I wouldn't be standing here without her. She paused, emotion flickering across her professional facade. I also heard about what you did when you were 12 years old. Saved 189 people when the captain had a heart attack. That true? Yes, ma'am. The commander smiled, a real, genuine smile. Then welcome home, Legacy. Your mother would be damn proud of you. Hell, I'm proud of you, and I just met you. Now let's see if you can fly half as good as you can handle emergency situations. Emma grinned. Only one way to find out, ma'am. Epilogue, above the clouds. Emma climbed into her F/A-18 Super Hornet for the first time as a fully qualified Navy fighter pilot. The cockpit smelled like jet fuel, electronics, and possibility. She went through her pre-flight checks with practiced precision. Systems green. Weapons safe. Navigation programmed. Before she put on her helmet, she touched her mother's dog tags one final time. They were warm from hanging against her chest all these years. I made it, Mom, she whispered to the memory of a woman she still missed every single day. I'm here. I'm a pilot. Just like you. The tower cleared her for takeoff. Emma advanced the throttles. The powerful engines screamed. The fighter accelerated down the runway, faster and faster, until the wheels left the earth. She climbed hard into the bright blue sky, pulling almost vertical, feeling the G-forces pressing her into the seat. Higher. Higher. Until she broke through the clouds into pure sunlight. And for one perfect moment, with the sun warming the canopy and the whole world spread out far below, Emma wasn't flying away from her past. She was flying directly into it. Honoring it. Living it. She was carrying the legacy of a mother who died too young and a grandfather who believed a grieving 9-year-old could become a pilot who saves lives. Some legacies are inherited through blood and genetics. Some are earned through pain, perseverance, and promises kept. Emma Mitchell's legacy was both. It started the day a 12-year-old girl walked into a cockpit and spoke 5 words that changed everything. Call sign legacy requests landing. And it continued every single day after, as she proved that age doesn't define ability. That grief can forge unbreakable strength. That sometimes the greatest legacies aren't passed down, they're taught by those who love us, one flight lesson at a time, until the student becomes the pilot, the child becomes the hero, and legacy becomes legend. Far below, On runways and in airports and living rooms across the country, people who'd been on United Flight 804 that day looked up at the sound of jets overhead. And they smiled. Because they knew. Legacy was flying. And she always would be.